let me introduce our next speaker. Let's bring Jardena London and spotlight her. And I'd love to introduce you all to Jardena.
Hi, Summer. So happy to be here.
Hello, welcome in, my dear. I am so happy to have you. Let me bring up your bio real quick.
Sure.
And I'd love to let you introduce yourself, my friend.
Oh, okay.
Hold on one second.
I will wait.
Jardena is an author. I'm going to do a quick intro and then I'd love for you to introduce yourself. Jardena is an author, a transformational business consultant, and a speaker. And she is the author of the brand new book, Cultivating Transformations, a leader's guide to connecting the soulful and the practical. With that, I'll turn it over to you, Jardena, to introduce yourself.
Yeah, I think that what I'll add there is, especially because we're at a Women Leading Powerfully Summit, I have 3 kids. So that's always, something that goes on when we're mothers. And I will mention also that I started out in software. I started out as a software developer and then started a software consultancy that I ran for 12 years. And the software business is, that's, there's not a lot of women there. Let's just put it that way. So I spent a lot of time in a male dominated field. So we'll talk about that. And then I moved more into the agility space and management consulting. So that's what I do now, because I just was much more interested in that than I was in software. Right.
Awesome. Welcome in, Jardena. So Jardena, myself, Nicole, Sally, a few of us here are all into agile in this business transformational world. So I am very curious, Jardena, what was that moment where you sort of stopped doing what you were doing? I'll call it living life on autopilot, right? Most of us sort of have this trajectory that we're set on of going to school, getting a job, doing what we're supposed to do, until this moment sort of strikes us where we realize, oh, that's not really what I want to be doing. There's something more that I want to be doing. So I'm curious on what was that moment for you where you decided to make that shift?
Yeah. So I love that question, but I don't know that I had a moment. I kind of felt like I always was pursuing a dream. It's just that the dream always changed. So I mean, you say autopilot, but I say, boy, was my dream to get a corporate job and live in a cookie cutter house. I mean, the cookie cutter house, because that's what normal people do. And I didn't feel like I was normal people. So it was my dream to be that. And then I got there, of course, like you're saying, and realized, no, I'm not this. I'm not a cookie cutter house corporate job kind of person. And that only took me a year. So right out of college, I got a job at AT&T. And T. And on my first day, is not an exaggeration, first day, they had layoffs. They announced layoffs. And so I had never felt secure in a corporate job. Like I never felt that security that people seek, because I was there for one day. They had the announcement after lunch. So I was there for 4 hours before the security was taken away. And so I only lasted there a year. And then I went off and became a consultant after that and started my company at 27, because I really didn't ever feel comfortable as a corporate person. Yeah. So for me, it was really about um, what do I want to take? What do I want my dream to be? Not will I have the courage to go pursue it?
I love that. So for you, it wasn't about uncovering what your dream is. It was about creating that dream.
Yeah,
What
exactly.
that was going to be. I think that's a question that a lot of people here are interested in, right? What is the key to finding out what is your purpose in life? Or in your case, where you're saying, look, I really think it's you just get to go out and create what it's going to be, right? So
Mm.
tell us a little bit about how you started deciding what that was going to be. Hey, I'm going to write a book. I'm going to start this management consultant. How did you decide to go into all of that?
Yeah, it's always such a work in progress, and I don't even feel like it's done. So I don't want to give anyone the impression that like I figured it all out and here I am to tell you, because it's always a work in progress. But I think one of the big things, and I'll give this to you as my what is it, words of wisdom or action things, is looking at my gift, like really taking a close look at the gifts that you have. And for a long time, I heard people say that and I didn't understand it. But it was for me appreciating my gifts as gifts and not in the context of conventional wisdom. So again, I came from software background, which is male dominated. And the conventional wisdom of what qualifies as valuable, my gifts didn't fit in there. So I'll give you some examples, but it took me a while to be able to look at the things that I bring that are valuable that may not be valued, and be able to then leverage those in a way that is valuable to the world, but it may not be on your job description. So I'll give an example. One of the things I'm really good at is just being intellectually curious, which is now a big buzzword, curiosity, right? But it wasn't. Being curious had no value. Being able to be a quick learner and jump from thing to thing was not valued. What was valued was mastery in one thing. That was always valued. So I felt like a failure. I was always a failure because I couldn't stick with anything. Like I was always on to the next thing. And until I started to appreciate that that is the gift. The gift is that I can jump from one thing to another and learn quickly. And that's a great skill for a consultant, by the way. So I'm in the right field. Um, but until I appreciated that, that's not on, and like I have never seen that on a job description. Jumps from one thing to another, is curious. That's not valued. So until you can appreciate your gifts as valuable, not how they fit in other people's definition of value, that really helped me unlock my purpose. Because then you take all those gifts and pull them together and go, wow, I'm curious. I'm a quick learner. What are the things that I can do with this? Well, I can write a book. Well, I can be a consultant. Well, I can write a blog on all different topics because I'm interested in all different topics. So, yeah, that's what I encourage people to do is really take a close look at what your gifts are.
I love that, Jardina. That's so powerful, right? And you're right. I think one of our other speakers earlier said the same thing, right? Recognize when something that other people around you are not valuing as a gift is your superpower. Oftentimes, what people might not recognize is a power for you or something special is actually your superpower, and being able to confidently step into that and confidently own that. So, Jardina, I know that you have a lot in your book about leading, and what is a leader's guide to connecting the soulful and the practical, right? I'd love to hear a little bit more about that and about how do you describe within that book on ways to do that?
To connect the soulful and the practical.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was kind of how I kind of sat back and pulled my gifts together and said, my gift is, I mean, I do the agility thing. We all, I do the management consulting thing, but what's different about me is that I make it soulful. And no one's buying, and I beat myself up so much, just so you all know, like no one's buying soulful. Like I'm not out there selling like I'm going to help be a management consultant that will make you soulful. No one's buying that. But that's the what I do that's different. So, okay, so how do you do that? With any work that you do, any work, there's a soulful element to it because the whole reason, if we're not working to have a happy life or joyful life, let's just say, then why are we working? Really? So, with everything that we do, whether it's what I do or what you do or what someone who works at Starbucks does, it doesn't matter. If you're not doing that in a soulful way that's bringing joy to your life, not always happiness, but joy, right? You know the difference. Like it doesn't always have to be you're not going to be in full happy bliss all the time, but even when you're sad, you're living fully into your soul. If you're not doing that with where you're spending most of your time, something's wrong. So what I've done in the book, and I've developed some practices, is how do we then bring soulfulness to every interaction process, whatever we do, and also have it be successful. That's why I talk about the practical. So it can't, so what it used to be in the past was we have the touchy-feely people over here, and we have the people who make money over here. And then like every once in a while at our team meeting, at our yearly team picnic, we have the touchy-feely people come in. But those two things need to connect. That soulfulness needs to make the money or whatever if you're a nonprofit, it needs to make you success, and your success needs to bring you soul. Like those two things need to be brought together.
So
So
what are some tips that you give on how do you actually do that? Like how do you, so let's say that you're a leader who's leading an organization or you're leading a team, right? How do you actually bridge that gap? So I couldn't agree more with you, right, Jardina? I think that there's a huge gap of where I definitely feel like I fall into both of those worlds, but to a certain extent, I feel like for a very long time I've had to keep them separate. Right now, I'm finally kind of stepping into how do I bring those worlds together because I really believe that they need to be brought together, and I believe that there is benefit to both. So I'm
Mhm.
very curious on what are some of the tips that you're giving people from being able to actually bridge that gap and bring soulfulness into their leadership, into their business.
Yeah. So I'll give you an example, and then I will also point you to a 5-step process that I have come up with to bring soul to any situation, process, whatever it is. But first, let's just talk about an example. So, and I'm sorry if this is just too specific for some folks, but I think it's a really good example. When an organization doesn't know how to prioritize and focus, right? And everybody's working on a million things and everyone has to work 16-hour days. That lack of prioritization in the business is sucking the soul out of all the people because the organization is shifting the burden of them really managing work onto the shoulders of the individuals, right? So they're taking advantage of the individual souls to basically shirk their responsibility at the system level. So if you have something like, so it's a simple thing, it's prioritization. So can we prioritize better so that we're not burdening and sucking the souls and stressing our individuals that work there? And prioritization, when you actually start to do prioritization well, it helps the business, it helps the profit, it helps the bottom line, right? It makes the business better, but it also helps the soul of the people that work there and the soul of the company, by the way, because the company has a soul too. But that's the thing about connecting. So when you look around your workplace and you see people's souls being crushed, it's not good for business. So we need to fix it in both ways. So I think about like, what's the soulless thing that happens at work? Well, budgeting process, right? Performance reviews. The prioritization is another thing or lack thereof. So like, let's take a look at those things and say, well, why are they like, so there's a 5-step process, which you can check out my website, jardenalondon.com and find the 5 steps. But just to kind of run you through it, I won't go through each one here, but number one, why do we start doing this in the first place? Why did we start doing budget planning? Why do we have performance reviews? There's got to be a reason. We didn't create it just to suck people's souls out, right? So go back to that original reason. And then the second question is, what is making it soulless? Like, what's so soulless about budget planning? What is so soulless about performance reviews? Like, where are we missing it? Like, where did we go astray, right? And really unpack that. And then take a look at where are there tensions that are being managed, so like polarities. So there's with budget planning, right, there's a long-term and short-term vision like that we're trying to balance, and sometimes that can cause um, things to go astray. And then after we do that, we say, well, let's now take a look at all of that stuff we've unpacked about this soullessness in our workplace and say, what would it take to bring soul to budget planning? What would it take to make this process soulful and joyful? Because we all need this, like, so budget planning, for example. Why do we need that? Well, we need that so we can invest in the business and the business can grow and we can all have jobs, right? There's a reason. So how do we bring that back to it? And then you get into that last step, you get into the place of possibility. Like, what's possible here? Well, how can we change this?
So let me play devil's advocate. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
I love all the tips that you shared, but let me play devil's advocate, right? So you're a new entrepreneur, you're just starting off, and
Yeah.
there are things about entrepreneurship that we all enjoy, right? We enjoy. So, for example, I love doing this. I love getting to come live and share with all of you and to connect with all of you, right? There's
Mhm.
some back end stuff like setting up affiliate links or setting up a website or things like that that absolutely drive me bunkers and I'm not going to enjoy. So there is always going to be a part of your job. I don't want to say that's going to be soulless, but that maybe not as joyful. So what do you recommend that you do with that? And how do you handle those moments?
Yeah. So not everybody likes doing everything. Right? So if that's not joyful for you, but it may be joyful for somebody else. So that's about getting, Jim Collins talks about getting the right people on the bus and then getting them in the right seats. So that's just about getting people in the right seats. So, have a virtual assistant who does like to do some of that work. So yes, do that, do my affiliate links, do my social media posts, because there are people who are passionate about that. I'm not one of them, right? If it's soulless for everybody, then we maybe take a closer look. But I think there's things that people like or people are willing to do, and it's not going to crush their souls completely.
Got it. So we do have a lot of entrepreneurs in the room, and what I think I'm hearing you say to them is get help. I think we've been
Yeah.
hearing
Get
that a lot
help.
is
Yeah.
get help, right? You don't have to do it alone. You don't have to yeah, we get to we
Oh,
get help, you guys, and really not go at this alone, right? I think after a very long time, it finally kind of occurred to me when I was going on my entrepreneur journey that I needed a business coach, and that as a coach, it's okay to have a coach. That's important at times.
well,
I
it's
think,
so key. It's so key because when I talk a lot about energy leakage. So where is your energy leaking and where can it be better allocated? So if you're spending time doing administrative work, then you're not spending time growing your business. And so again, it's goes to prioritization, right? You're not prioritizing the important things that you have to do. And actually, I'm going to talk about that more in a minute, actually, because we're getting to that. But yeah, so definitely delegate things that you don't need to do so you can do the things that are key to your business.
I love that. Please go into it. I want you to go into it now.
Oh, the other piece? Well, you know, if we talked about like some of the actionable steps, the thing for me was for so many years, I felt like, oh, I wish I could just be discovered. I wish someone could see my value and be, I wish I could hire an agent like a Hollywood star. Someone could see my value and go tell the world how wonderful I am. Bullshit. We're not doing that because the only person that can tell the world how wonderful you are is you because you know so much more intimately. Someone else, they might think you're awesome, but they don't know how awesome you are the way you do. And so this is, again, I said work in process. I'm still working on this one. I'm big time working on this one right now of learning how to represent myself because I just came to the conclusion no one else can do it. They might be able to make me money, but they can't represent me like I can represent myself.
Jardina, I love that. For some of you guys that ask me to ask our speakers about how do I advance in my career, right? I think that for a very long time, I waited for someone else to see my value. I would get sad at night and I would cry. And why can't they see how valuable and I am and all the work that I do for them? And I wanted someone to give me a promotion. Again, it's maybe not the same thing as like going and getting an agent and kind of wanting to become world famous, but it's still this idea of someone else should recognize my value instead of me recognizing my value and going where I'm valued. So I just want to emphasize this point of that if you want to go grow in your career, that exercise that I had you guys do earlier where you all sat in a, captured, you actually wrote down your accomplishment and start to feel comfortable saying your accomplishment out loud, especially women. I know we have some men here supporting the women in the room. Thank you guys for being here as well. But especially women, we're so bad at being able to speak out our accomplishments. So many gems that Jardina is dropping in today. Thank you so much for that. Jardina, let me ask you one more question that someone is asking here. And specifically, when you are a high achieving woman, so many women in this community are very high achieving women that are either entrepreneurs or coaches that are going out and trying to get it or leaders in the organization. How do you start to balance your three kids? How do you balance having your family and your work and writing a book and running an organization? How are you balancing all of that?
Yeah. So I don't, I wish I had better advice for you, but having a really good partner helps. I mean, that was an agreement that I had with my husband when we were first married, that he would be supportive. And I don't know how you do it if you have two parents with big jobs or if you're a single parent. I don't have a good, I wish I had a better answer for that. But for me, it just worked out that I had a partner who was willing to support me. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely, that would be my answer too. I'm very lucky that my husband actually pushes me into this and kind of allows me to do it fully because he knows how important it is for me. So I think that's very powerful.
Yeah.
The other thing that I would give you advice, not from my own experience, you guys, I'm not there yet, but something that my own coach has been teaching me that I think is so important is, do you take flex weeks? So something that my business coach does is she really works Mondays to Friday, no working on the weekend whatsoever. The weekend is her time with her family. Her days end at 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock, and she takes a week off every single month. Obviously, she's an 8-figure coach. It's taken her time to get to that level. But for me, seeing people do business a different way than that, seeing people sort of give up their life to have a business really deterred me from wanting to start a business. It really made me feel like this is not the life that I want, because for me, having a family and having that life was so important. So, as far as how do you balance your career and your life, I think you get to make a choice that you will, and that could impact your income, and be okay with that if that's what matters to you and that's what's important to you. I know for a fact that that's what's becoming important to me in my life. And so as I start a business, as I pursue this, it's so important for me to keep certain times blocked off for me personally, and
Yeah.
not to schedule meetings, not to allow other things to come in. So I think that's just something that you get to be sort of clear as you are high achieving women in your life on how you do that.
Yeah. You design your life, right? So you design it how you want it, you know?
Absolutely. All right, my dear, when you hear the word leadership, right? What does that word mean to you? And what does it mean to you to start stepping powerfully into your leadership?
Yeah. So that is I love the word leadership because it doesn't have to mean that people work for you, right? I think you've probably already covered that, but that is so important. And for me, it means, and this Coactive Institute talks about this too, it means that you own your impact in the world. Like I'm going to intentionally create the life I want, and I own the impact I have. I own how the world reacts to me. I own how I show up. So for a long time, for me, that was about self-awareness. Big learning curve for me on self-awareness. And now I've really moved into even more about how I represent myself, right? We talked about that. But self-awareness is a big one. So for a long time, I told you I was a techie, and I really didn't understand that I had to also pay attention to people's reaction to me, not just what I said. Like I said the word, I wrote the code, now the program should work. That's what I thought. But people weren't reacting positively, and I was not taking that feedback into consideration and changing my approach.
So welcoming feedback, I feel like that's what I'm hearing you say, right? Is you own your impact, and
Mhm.
how people are perceiving you, being aware of that, right? Being aware of that impact that we have into the world. And then also welcoming that feedback and noticing it, right? Because some people,
Noticing it.
yeah, I think some people don't realize, but we have in our world, giving feedback is very uncomfortable because most people get very, very defensive and they take it as an attack on them versus true, like, here is some feedback with love, right? And so
Yeah.
becomes something you don't want to do. I know for me, it's like, I really just don't want to give you feedback. How can I avoid this? And so
Yeah.
welcoming that feedback, I think, is such an important part of us starting to become self-aware, and then
Yep.
being willing to pivot, right? Being willing to pivot when we see that. Go ahead, Jardina.
Yeah.
Yes.
And feedback comes in so many different ways, right? It's not always like someone saying, let me give you feedback. Okay. So I tell this story. I'll tell you the story real quick. When I was younger, and I was a consultant, but software, and I went to this client and I was saying something, whatever I was saying, who knows, right? But I was right. And he was getting mad. And I just kept saying it over and over again, slower, more forcefully, whatever. Because I was right. And I was right. Of course I was right. But he was getting madder and madder. And when we left, my colleague said to me, um, did you notice Bob getting mad when you kept saying that? And I was like, yeah, but I was right. Because that's what's important, right? And my colleague said, when you see someone getting mad, you might want to consider changing what you're saying. And I was like, what? Never thought of that. I honestly never thought of that.
How powerful is that, right? Kind of that goes back into kind of understanding and diving deeper into what Dr. AJ shared with us earlier about just understanding emotional intelligence, right? So, like, having enough awareness to notice when someone isn't responding positively to something. And actually, a very valuable lesson that I learned from my sister who's in the room, that really helped me in my life, is I can be very analytical. And when I get into my analytical state, I tend to dive quite deep into being right.
Mhm.
And I will Google it. I will tell you how you're wrong. And that sort of I mean, in my mind, if I'm right, and if the information, it's a fact, what else matters, right? And I think it took for me to be faced with other people that step so much into their right in situations that I don't think are so black and white, to recognize that what is more important, the relationship in the connection that you have with that person in front of you, or is what matters more being right or being wrong, right? Like, are you so forcefully forcing your point that you're not recognizing that it's not about being right or being wrong anymore, and it's about connecting in that relationship. So I am so appreciative that I've grown up with an incredible sister that you guys, I think some of you already know, that has taught me and given me so many of these feedbacks over the year, so that when I stepped into this space, I was that much more self-aware.
Yeah, that's
Yes,
awesome.
Monica, exactly, right? Continuing to think about, are you entering a space to be right or to be in a relationship? It's so, so critical, right? And I think us women are actually better about this, where we know what battles to pick and what battles not to pick. I think men tend to do this a little bit more on the have to be right, but noticing when that's happening, I think, is important. All right, my dear, what are your top actionable advice to overcoming imposter syndrome? It's something that we all struggle with, and we got a great talk on this topic earlier from AJ. But I'd love to hear from you. What are your top tips for
Yeah.
this?
Okay, so I missed the talk earlier because I had to take my daughter to the doctor, which is a perfect example of the work-life balance. Um, but the story, and I hope that she didn't tell this story, um, the story that really resonates for me is told by Elizabeth Lesser, who, if you're not familiar with Elizabeth Lesser, she is the founder of the Omega Institute and a great writer. Please go seek out her material. But she tells a story about a room full of mostly, but not all women. And the speaker asked the question, how many of you are experts in breastfeeding? And most women didn't raise their hand. And I think about it, if I were in that room, would I raise my hand? Am I an expert in breastfeeding? Well, I had 3 kids that I nursed. 2 of them were kind of crappy at nursing, and one of them was a dream. But am I an expert at it? Well, I failed with 2/3 of my kids really at being a good breastfeeder. So I probably would not, and I didn't go to lactation school. I'm not a nurse, right? I don't know that I'd raise my hand. Well, a man in the audience raised his hand because he had a wife that breastfed and he watched and he felt confident to raise his hand. So whenever I think about like imposter syndrome, I just always remind myself to look at the other people out there that have less skills than I do and are knocking it out of the park and are confident and feel like experts and people are buying from them. And I'm all like, well, I nursed 3 kids, but one of them I had to pump and like all of these stories that I'm telling myself. And the man's like, I'm an expert in breastfeeding. So when I just remember the man being an expert at breastfeeding, then I can overcome my imposter syndrome.
I love, love, love that. Okay, tell us a little bit about some actions that helped you start stepping into, once you've kind of decided, here's the dream that I'm going to create for my life. What are some actions that or actionable advice for others, things that you would say, hey, here's some things that I do every day, or here's some habits and practices that I've put in place that are really helping me reach the success that I have in life today?
I'm going to say 2 things. And, I'm just going to preface this by saying easier said than done, guys, because this is hard stuff. So one thing is, you know, there used to be a commercial for wine that said, we will sell no wine before it's time. Until it's time, it's gestated, it's not going to come out. So trying to force something before it's time it's just not going to work. So the book, I thought for years about writing a book, but I didn't put pen to paper. And then one day that book just came out. Like that book came out in like 3 weeks. So it was just time. So when it's time, it's easy. So always look for that easy. And with a lot of other things too, that easy button. If you're not finding the easy button, it's not time yet. Right. So just and you may be so busy pushing brute force and trying to force something that's not ready that you miss that easy path that you could have taken because you're so focused on this hard work that you're doing. So just keep your eyes open, be looking for that easy button. The other thing that I would say, and this is so much easier said than done, I realize it, but I sort of don't really think about how hard things are going to be until it's too late. So, like, for something simple like giving a talk, like, I'm not nervous about it because I haven't really thought about what it's gonna be, like to be up on that stage. And that's a weakness and a strength, but it really does allow me to, like, step with, like, a lot of gutsiness into things because I haven't really thought about the anxiety that I'm gonna feel when I do it, but I don't need to think about it ahead of time, so I can step into it a lot easier, like jump off a cliff a lot easier. So again, easier said than done because we think about things, right? But if you can like sort of delay the anxiety until it's too late, that works really well.
I love that, Jardina. I love it. Delay that. I think that's something that we're going to talk about later today, which is just the four different personality types and how to shift. And I think that's a characteristics of promoters. When you tend to be a natural promoter, we tend to be very good about, we're just excited about the experience. So we're willing to step into it, right? Where analyzers want to analyze all the different things before they're willing to step into it. And so learning how to be able to style flex, I would call it, is an important way that will help you adapt some of the positive aspects of different personality types. And so we'll definitely talk about that more later on today. But I love that advice of kind of borrow that from us promoters and just step into experiences. I feel like I'm that way too, where a lot of times someone will tell me about something and I'll raise my hand and say, yes, me, before I even fully know what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I
So
do that too.
yeah, so there is times when that's good and there is times when we've got to style flex, but I love that. That's great advice. Okay, my dear audience, I would love to open it up to everybody in the room. If you guys have questions, please tell us. How can you tell if you're not ready because you're not on the easy path yet, or because your emotions are holding you back? That's a great question. Thank you for sharing. So, Dardina, that's a question that came up.
Oh, what was the question? I'm sorry.
The
How?
question is, how can you tell if you're not ready because you're not on the easy path? So you haven't found the easy button. Or like in my case, I don't think it was that it wasn't easy. In my case, I believe that, for example, my emotions were holding me back for a long time. My fear, my anxiety was getting in the way of me moving forward. So how can you tell the differences between those two?
Oh, that's so interesting. So the question for me, so because I'm an analyzer, is when my emotions are getting in the way, why? Like, so why are they in the way? So, um, I'm working through a slaying demons is one thing, right? We always need to slay those demons that are blocking us. But then sometimes that anxiety is telling us something. So I had a situation when I wrote the book where I kind of wrote this book, like I told you, in a couple of weeks, it just kind of came out because it was in there. And then I was like, well, what do I do with this manuscript that I have now? Do I shop it around to publishers? Do I self-publish? I talked to some people and got some advice. It seemed like a lot of work. And I knew I wasn't going to do it. Like I just knew I wasn't going to do it. And then I had someone say, hey, I can publish it for you. And I was like, easy button, because that my procrastination of not wanting to do all that work was for a reason. The reason, because I wasn't going to do it. Like, I just wasn't. I knew I wasn't. But sometimes it's like there's a demon there that you need to slay. So you kind of have to figure out like, is it a demon or is it just like, do I just need to face the fact that like, I'm not doing this? I'm just not going to do it.
But what if what I guess let me dig a little bit deeper into that, right? What would be the reason? Like, is the demon maybe that there's a reason behind that fear? Is that what you're saying? Is that maybe there's something that's holding you back that legitimately should hold you back? So therefore,
Yeah. So, okay. So let's see if we can analyze this a little bit. I'm analyzing on the fly here, but let me just think about some of my experiences. Um, so when I was not wanting to go to publishers and shop the book around, because that's just not fun to me, but I didn't feel like I was having any sort of emotional reaction. So with the demons I'm slaying now, which I was telling you about in representing myself, um, I can feel myself have an emotional reaction. Like I can feel, okay, we're gonna get a little psychological here. Like I can feel my 6-year-old self come out and like protection come out. And I can feel like anxiety rising in my chest. I didn't feel that with the book. I just felt like, oh, this isn't fun. It's just it was no emotion. It just was sort of like, I don't want to do this. Whereas with the other, I can feel myself have an emotional reaction that needs to be slayed.
I think that's powerful, right? There is a time when our when your emotions or your little girl, I would say, is running the show. So knowing when you are the one running the show, and this is coming from a conscious in a place where it makes sense, and no, there is truly resistance, because there should be resistance, because this might not be the right time. In recognizing when there's an emotional reaction that's coming out that has to do more with a little girl in you being scared, or a little boy in you being scared, versus that truly is how you should move forward. What a great question. All right, you guys,
Yeah,
I
that
want
was
to give
good.
you an opportunity to ask Jardina questions as well. So I want to pause, and if anyone has a question, please put it in the chat. Otherwise, I'll keep going with some of the questions that we received before the summit.
Yeah.
We just want to give everyone who's here the opportunity to ask questions as well.
This is good stuff. I mean, this is good we can get real psychological here because that's what it is.
Yeah.
You know? And we talked about you know, stepping into leadership. And I think that's something to think about there too, is thinking about how you lead that might not be the traditional way leadership looks, you know, because women lead differently.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think again, it's if there is one thing that I think represents leadership is that who you are is how you lead. And so
Mm.
being self-aware and actually doing your self-work has a lot to do with how you show up and how you're going to lead. So I believe that just like being an entrepreneur and starting a company, through that process, you continue to evolve and you personally have to evolve and develop and grow as an individual to be able to do some of those things that can challenge you. Why do we always say that? Is because it triggers certain things emotionally within you. It makes you face your demons, right? It becomes very difficult to do certain things without facing your demons. And so I really think that at least for me, that's what I'm seeing is that self-awareness that you talked about earlier, Jardina. And it does go back to, can we go and heal the wounds that are within us? Because oftentimes what we get triggered by the most is what is in us. It's something that we face ourselves, and that's what could trigger us the most. And so sometimes we don't, if you're not even seeing it, if you're not aware of it, you oftentimes could not realize it. Okay, we have one question for you that I think would be so helpful for everybody, which is, what are your strategies for continuing to keep motivated? So when you're writing a book and you're running a company, how do you keep motivated and stand in your power?
Ooh, how do I keep motivated? Um, oh, this is such a good question. I don't know that I have. So again, like if you're working in your sweet spot, in your passion, or let me say for me, if I'm in my sweet spot in my passion, I'm motivated. If I'm doing something that I shouldn't be doing that I don't like shopping a book to a publisher, I'm not going to be motivated. I know I'm not going to be motivated to do that. I can hire someone to help me. But so the way that I stay motivated is making sure and always calibrating that I'm working within my area of not just passion, but purpose. So when I feel like I'm working on purpose, I'm so motivated. I think the other thing too is this was a great tip. Here's a great tip for you, action item. Patrick Lencioni has a book called The Truth About Employee Engagement. And he talks about having your own metric for what's making you successful and you know being on purpose on a daily basis. So for me, what I figured out as mine was if I can shift someone's mindset just a smidgen every day, then I can leave knowing I did a good job. That's it. You can have all kinds of metrics and charts that you measure me by. But for me, as I'm walking, so as I would get in the elevator when we used to go to buildings, as I was walking towards the elevator, I would think, did I shift anybody's mindset today at all? And if I did, then that was a good day, you know, and that keeps me motivated.
I love that, right? I think what I hear you saying, and this is very new for me, but something that I'm stepping into is don't allow other people's measurements of you to become your measurements of yourself, right? Keep
Mhm.
yourself motivated by measuring yourself. What is it that means that you've produced value, right? So don't allow, some people are measuring you based on things that don't define your own worth, and you can't allow that to become your worth. Otherwise, you can get demotivated pretty quickly. So I love all the tips that you gave today. And I have one final question for you. Who
Man.
did you have to become to have the life that you have now? And what are some of the things that you had to leave behind?
All right, so we're going to get into some psychological stuff now. I didn't leave anybody behind because my whole life, my whole worldview, I have a friend who calls it the life prism reaction, which I love that metaphor of the prism because it's all of these pieces that have come together to make the prism that you are, right? And so I wouldn't want to leave any of them behind. And even the, you know, we talked about the little girl, like even the little girl who was abused, even the little girl who was bullied, she's still with me. Like she still comes with me. But what I did, rather than leave her behind, was I shed the armor that was protecting her so that she can be with me, but I don't have to be so prickly. Because I was super prickly. You didn't know me then. I was super prickly because I was always armored up. So if you said to me, "Hey, you want to go to lunch?" I'd be like, "Why? Why are you asking?" You know. So shedding that armor that was protecting that defensiveness from
Jardina, that
all.
sounds very New York, very New Jersey. I love
Okay,
it.
so I'm a little bit like that still. But yeah, it was blocking me from connecting with other people, right? And when you're a leader, you're mobilizing people and you're inspiring people. And if you have a ton of armor on, then you really can't do that. So it was intimidating. I was really intimidating. Um, and it was prickly and it was driving people away. So by peeling that armor away, still peeling it away, you know, of course I'm still peeling away armor. Then that is what I left behind was the armor. But I brought all of those little girls that I was and all of those experiences with me.
I love that, right? We just get to bring them with us with love. So, you guys, there's something that I do. Please don't laugh, but since it's sitting here, I'll show you. This is a picture of me
Oh.
when I was super young. And I want to say this is sort of where a lot of my trauma started to happen in life when I was in high school, where I felt bullied. I didn't feel loved. I didn't really feel accepted. And I always keep her picture in front of me. And I give her lots of love because I think if you don't do that, it's so difficult to heal some of our trauma. So, something that I've always done is kept a picture of me in some of those different ages of my life. I also keep a picture of my niece when she was a little bit younger in front of me. And anytime I talk to myself, I ask myself, is that how I would talk to her if she was here in front of me, if she had been through the same situation? How would I give her love? How would I speak to her? And I make sure that I'm speaking to myself in that same way. I just think those concepts are so important for bringing our whole self along, right? So that you're not leaving any of that behind.
Mm.
So, are there any habits that you've left behind? It sounds like, for example, armor, right? So when you start to talk about armor and armoring up, it feels like that's something that you might have left behind. I'd love to hear a little bit about some of the things that you think have served you well in becoming this new you, and some of the things that you have left behind as far as just different habits and things.
Yeah, I think, you know, I think about the evolution there. And so what I guess I could say I kind of left behind, of course, the armor, but there was some shyness. So there was shyness that was really armor, but it was um I really unpacked though, like what was the shyness about? Because I was always confident underneath the shyness. That sounds weird, right? But just letting that out was freeing. I think also when I started my career, and one of the reasons I went into software was because I believed that I didn't like people.
Mm.
And so um learning, and it was about armor. I didn't like people because I was afraid they'd hurt me. So starting to like see how I can really love people and see the good in people. And that I learned it through software because I was the only software engineer that actually could connect, not only, but I was one of the few in my group when I started that really connected with the business people and could talk to them. So I was like, oh, I thought I hated people, but here I am talking to people. What's that about? So I think that I left behind that belief that I wanted to be in a room developing software, not talking to people.
So, Dare to Lead by Brene Brown, which is a methodology that you are certified in being able to coach organizations on, that really does talk about this armor concept, is something that I am super passionate about. And I know that you are as well. For anyone here who doesn't know what armor is, could you speak a little bit more into that? What is armor? What is showing up to work with vulnerability? What are some of the things that you learn that you use as you coach leaders into stepping into that level of leadership?
Yeah. Yeah. So what Brene Brown says, just to give the full quote, is it's not fear, and her research has shown this. It's not fear that's holding you back, it's armor. And that resonated with me because I really never felt fearful. I just felt armored. So when she talks about armor, it's that it's not physical, it could be, but it's those shields that you create, those psychological shields that you put, that defensiveness that you put in between you and other people to protect yourself from getting hurt. And it serves you. It served you for many years. Like you built that armor for a reason, right? Like you built it maybe even in middle school to protect yourself from a bully, or I did. And so it's just not serving you anymore. So letting go of some of that defensiveness, like I mentioned before, if somebody challenges your idea in a meeting and you come back with a lot of facts, and sometimes knowledge can be armor. Knowledge is one of my biggest armors. Like if I can know everything, then you can never make me look bad. That was part of my armor. So it's all of those little capabilities that we build to protect ourselves. So it might be not opening up, but it might be just having a lot of knowledge can be armor. There's all different kinds of ways that you can build defensiveness, but it keeps, so it keeps the hurt out, but it keeps the good out too.
Oh, how powerful is that, right? It keeps the hurt out, but it keeps the good out as well. I think that's so powerful. Jardina, thank you so, so much for coming
Oh,
today. I really, really appreciate it, having you and all of your valuable knowledge that you shared. You guys, Jardina is offering you all a free giveaway. So if you go in, you could win a free book. I know I entered because I'm just gonna buy it. But go in, you guys, and enter for this giveaway. This is an incredible book. Jardina is absolutely incredible. So go in here and enter for your free giveaway to win one of her books. Thank you, Jardina. It
you're
is
so
so incredible
welcome. This
to
was
have.
really fun.
Yes, it was so much fun. You guys, I'm having a ton of fun. I hope you guys are getting a ton of information, and I hope you guys are having a ton of fun as well. Please go in again. I finally got the survey to work. It wasn't working earlier, so if you tried to go in and answer it, I had it messed up a little. Go in now, and please let us know what some of your key takeaways were. I'll share my screen. And before we bring Bob in, I'd love to give you all a few minutes break to go grab water, anything like that. Trying to give you guys a 5-minute break between every talk so you guys have some time. Jardina, anything else that you'd like to end with or add today?
No, I just want to thank you so much for putting this summit together. This is wonderful. I mean, we really do like all of these things really are helpful. And I wish someone told me when I was earlier in my career, or I wish I was at a summit like this when I was just starting out.
Thank you, Jardina. That was my goal, you guys. I really hoped and prayed and felt in my heart that I was called to bring something forward to help people in all different phases of their career that want to step into leadership, that want to start living their most remarkable life, right? I think one of the saddest things is to wake up every day and be so unexcited to go to work, wake up every day and be so unexcited about what you're going to do that day. So I think that we all get to have our most remarkable life and pursue our dreams and learn ways to get there. So I am so excited to have all of you amazing, amazing speakers here today. I'm so honored, Jardina, that you've joined me. And thank you for saying yes so last minute as well. Jardina is another amazing speaker that stepped in when I had another speaker drop out. So thank you for that, Jardina. So much love, my dear. All right, you guys, give Jardina a whole bunch of love in the chat. And if you don't mind, go ahead and while you are on break, I'm going to put this up here and share a little song for you guys. And go ahead and just make sure that you give us what are your key takeaways. And I can't wait to be joined by Bob, Rich. Actually, I'm going to leave their portfolios up here because they're already here. So this is who we've got next for you guys. Alma Galvan and Bob Dyrich of Brainworks. They are the founders of Brainworks. And this is a topic that is so close to my heart. And I cannot wait till we dive a little bit deeper into it. We are diagnosed with so many of these different things, and what does it really mean, and how do you move forward despite of it? So Bob, thank you so much for being here today. And I don't know if Alma's here yet or not, but I am excited to be joined with them, and they will be joining us here in 12 minutes. Bob, go ahead and say hello.
Well, we're excited too. So we'll see you in just a few minutes. Alma's getting settled, and we're getting our tech handled, so we'll be there
Perfect. Yes, we're going to give everybody a break for a little bit. We'll play a song and have everybody capture their takeaways from these amazing other speeches that we had. So play a song for you guys.